I was publicly humiliated by my wife at our dinner party. Then I exposed her cheating and walked away to reclaim my dignity and start over for good. I perfectly planned to host a dinner for my wife's co-workers and their spouses. Something about networking and making connections. I spent hours preparing everything, cleaning the house, cooking a 3-course meal, making sure the wine was properly chilled. I wanted to impress them, to make her proud. The evening started pleasantly enough with casual conversation over appetizers. Everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves, complimenting the food and atmosphere. I started to relax, thinking maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. That's when things took a turn I never expected. My wife was on her 3rd glass of wine when the conversation somehow shifted to relationships. She looked at me with that smile, the one I'd come to recognize as trouble, before turning to her colleagues. "You know what's funny?" she said, her voice slightly louder than necessary. "When we first met, I thought he would be this amazing catch. Tall, successful, impressive in all areas." She emphasized the word all with a theatrical wink. Her colleague's husband asked, "And he isn't?" Everyone laughed, thinking it was just playful banter between spouses. "Well, let's just say," she held up her hand, pinching her thumb and index finger together with barely any space between them, "some things don't measure up to expectations." The table erupted in laughter. I felt my face burning, unable to look at anyone, but she wasn't finished. Honestly, it's like being married to a teenage boy, quick to start, quicker to finish, if you know what I mean. More laughter followed as she continued. "Sometimes I wonder if I should buy him a booster seat for dinner." One of her female colleagues tried to change the subject, probably sensing my discomfort, but my wife persisted. "No, really, it's fine. We all have our crosses to bear. Mine's just smaller than most." She raised her glass in a mock toast, and everyone reluctantly joined, the atmosphere now thick with awkward tension. I sat there, frozen, my food untouched, as the conversation mercifully moved on to other topics. But the damage was done. I could see it in their eyes, pity, embarrassment, that uncomfortable awareness you can't unsee. My manhood, my confidence, my dignity, all laid bare as a joke at my own dinner table. What hurt most wasn't just the humiliation. It was the realization that the person who was supposed to be my closest ally, my partner in life, thought so little of me that she would use my most intimate insecurities as dinner entertainment. I managed to get through the rest of the evening on autopilot, clearing plates, refilling drinks, forcing smiles at appropriate moments. Inside, something was breaking. Something fundamental was shifting in how I saw my marriage, my wife, and myself. After our guests left, she acted as if nothing had happened. When I confronted her about it, she dismissed my feelings entirely. "Oh, lighten up. It was just a joke. Everyone has these kinds of playful jabs at their partners. You're being too sensitive." That night, as she slept soundly beside me, I lay awake, staring at the darkness. Her words played on repeat in my mind. It wasn't the first time she had made comments about my height or my performance in bed, but it was the first time she had done it so publicly, so deliberately. Little did I know, this dinner party would be the catalyst that finally opened my eyes to the truth of our relationship. Sometimes humiliation can be the wake-up call you never knew you needed. That dinner party wasn't an isolated incident. As I lay awake that night, memories flooded back, a constant stream of small cuts that had slowly bled my self-worth dry over our 8 years together. In the beginning, her comments were subtle, often disguised as jokes or helpful suggestions. "Maybe you should wear shoes with thicker soles," she'd say before we attended events with her colleagues. "It might help you look more authoritative." I'd laugh it off, thinking she was just being practical. Then came the bedroom comments. What started as guidance quickly turned into criticism. "Is that it?" she'd ask with visible disappointment. "Already?" Or worse, she'd sigh and turn away, mumbling, "Don't worry about it. I'm used to it by now." Each time, I tried harder to please her, only to face more disappointment, more sighs, more subtle shakes of her head. My promotion at work 3 years ago should have been a celebration. Instead, when I proudly told her about my new senior position, she responded, "That's nice. I guess they must not have had many options this year." Then she immediately changed the subject to her own work accomplishments. I remember standing in our kitchen, champagne unopened, as she talked about herself for 40 minutes straight. Family gatherings were another battlefield. She'd introduce me to distant relatives with a hand on my shoulder, saying things like, "This is my husband. He's not what I expected when I dreamed about marriage as a little girl, but we make do, don't we, honey?" All while wearing that perfect smile that made everyone think she was just being playfully affectionate. When we shopped for clothes, she'd hold up smaller sizes and say, "Maybe someday, right?" in front of store assistants. If I tried something on that I liked, she'd frown slightly and say, It's fine if that's what you want, but it doesn't really do you any favors. Even my hobbies weren't safe. When I started taking guitar lessons, something I'd always wanted to do, she laughed and told her friends on the phone, "It's cute. His fingers are too small to reach some chords properly, but he tries so hard." I stopped playing after 3 months. The most consistent pattern was how she'd build me up in private, just enough to tear me down in public. She'd say I looked handsome as we got ready for an event, only to later tell everyone about how she had to help me coordinate my outfit because I dressed like a colorblind teenager. She'd praise a meal I cooked at home, then tell dinner guests I was still learning basic techniques. Our vacations followed the same script. She'd criticize my planning abilities, my navigation skills, my restaurant choices, all while documenting our perfect couple moments for social media. The contrast between her online portrayal of our marriage and the reality was jarring. The night after that dinner party, scrolling through her Instagram, I saw she'd posted photos from the evening, amazing dinner with amazing friends, and my amazing husband who made it all happen. The comments below were filled with heart emojis and couple goals responses. That's when it truly hit me. I was living in 2 different marriages, the public one she crafted online and the private one where I was constantly reminded I wasn't enough. As morning light filtered through our bedroom curtains, I realized with startling clarity, this wasn't love. This was abuse, and it had been happening for years. The realization that I was in an abusive marriage changed something fundamental inside me. For the first time, I started paying attention to the little things I'd been ignoring, like how protective she was with her phone, how she'd always turn it face down when I entered the room, how she'd step outside to take certain calls, claiming they were work-related, even at 10 p.m. on weekends. 2 days after the dinner party, she left her phone on the kitchen counter while taking a shower. It buzzed repeatedly with incoming messages. I'd never snooped before. Trust had always been important to me, even when I was the only one practicing. But something compelled me to look this time. The lock screen showed messages from someone saved as work project lead. 3 messages previewed on the screen, "Missing you already. Last night was incredible. When can you get away again?" My hands trembled as I picked up her phone. By some bitter coincidence, she hadn't changed her password since we'd set up each other's phones years ago. I opened the message thread and felt the room spin around me. Hundreds of messages stretched back months. Explicit photos, detailed accounts of hotel meetups, plans for their next encounter. The most recent message thread discussed their dinner plans for tomorrow night, apparently when I would be working late, though this was news to me. But what truly destroyed me were the messages where they discussed me. "He has no idea," she'd written, too busy trying to please me to notice anything. Her lover had asked if she felt guilty, to which she'd replied, "For what? Being with a real man for once? He should thank me for staying with him this long." I scrolled further back, finding messages from the night of the dinner party. "He just sits there and takes it," she'd written. I practically called him tiny and inadequate in front of everyone, and he still served dessert with a smile. "It's almost too easy." Her lover had responded, "That's because he knows he can't do better than you." I set the phone down exactly as I'd found it and walked to our home office with mechanical precision. I began checking our joint accounts, credit card statements, phone records. The evidence piled up quickly. Unexplained hotel charges, restaurants I'd never been to on dates we'd supposedly shared, weekend work conferences that her company had never organized. The affair had been going on for at least 7 months with someone from her office, not a project lead but her equal-ranking colleague, whose wife had been sitting across from me at our dinner table, also unaware. I printed key documents and screenshots, securing them in a folder. Then I called my best friend, asking if I could stay at his place for a few days. I contacted a lawyer the same afternoon. That evening I acted completely normal. I asked about her day, made dinner, suggested watching her favorite show, all while the folder sat hidden in my briefcase by the door, all while she texted him right next to me on the couch, smiling at her phone screen. "Good news at work?" I asked casually. "Just a project coming together," she replied without looking up. "Nothing you'd understand." I nodded and sipped my wine, studying her face. This stranger I'd shared my life with for 8 years. The woman who had systematically dismantled my self-worth while betraying me in the most fundamental way possible. "I love you," I said, testing the words. She glanced up briefly. "Love you too," she responded automatically before returning to her phone. That moment of practiced, empty routine crystallized everything. I wasn't just being belittled and mocked. I was being actively deceived by someone who held no real love for me. And for the first time since the nightmare began, I felt something unexpected rising within me. Not heartbreak, not even anger, but a cool, clarifying resolve. It was time to end this charade. I spent the next day setting everything in motion. I transferred half our joint accounts to a new personal account. I called my lawyer again to finalize our strategy. I even took the afternoon off to move essential belongings to my friend's place while she was at work. Everything was in place for the confrontation I knew had to happen. That evening, I prepared her favorite dinner, salmon with roasted vegetables and white wine. She came home surprised by the romantic setup. "What's the occasion?" she asked, tossing her keys on the counter. "Just felt like doing something nice," I replied, pouring her a glass of wine. "How was your day?" "Busy, stressful, the usual," she said, checking her phone again, probably messaging him, before sitting down. We ate in relative silence until I finally spoke. "I need to talk to you about something important." She sighed dramatically. "Can it wait? I'm exhausted." "No, it can't." I placed the folder on the table between us. "I know about the affair." Her expression cycled rapidly through shock, denial, and calculation before settling on indignation. "What are you talking about?" I opened the folder and laid out the evidence piece by piece. The hotel receipts, the text message screenshots, the restaurant bills, the phone records. "You went through my phone?" she snapped, attempting to flip the script. "That's a complete invasion of privacy." "Yes, I did," I admitted calmly. "After years of your emotional abuse and public humiliation, I finally listened to my instincts." She laughed incredulously. "Abuse? Are you serious right now? I've supported you through everything. You've belittled me at every opportunity, and worse," I countered. "You've mocked my height, my performance in bed, my career, all while sleeping with someone else." Her strategy shifted instantly. Tears formed in her eyes. "I made a mistake. It didn't mean anything. We can work through this." "The affair is just one part of why this marriage is over," I explained, maintaining my composure. "Even without it, I wouldn't stay with someone who treats me with such contempt." She reached across the table for my hand. I pulled back. "You don't understand," she pleaded. "I've been under so much pressure at work. He was just there. It was a moment of weakness. 7 months of moments," I corrected her. "And the things you said about me." Her tears vanished instantly, replaced by cold fury. "Fine, you want the truth? Yes, I've been unhappy. What did you expect? You never satisfied me, not financially, not emotionally, not physically." I nodded, almost relieved to finally hear her honest thoughts. "That's exactly why I'm leaving. I deserve better than someone who sees me that way." "You?" she scoffed. "Better than me? Good luck finding anyone who will put up with your limitations." She gestured dismissively at my entire body. In that moment, looking at her beautiful face twisted with cruelty, I felt a strange sense of peace. This woman had never loved me. She'd only loved controlling me, diminishing me. "I've already spoken to a lawyer," I said. "The divorce papers will be ready tomorrow. I'll be staying elsewhere until it's finalized." Her expression changed again, panic breaking through the contempt. "You can't be serious. Where will you go? What will people think?" "I don't care what people think anymore," I replied, standing up. "That was always your concern, not mine." As I moved toward the door, she rushed after me, grabbing my arm. "Wait, we need to talk about this. You can't just throw away 8 years. I gently removed her hand. "You threw them away. One comment, one lie, one betrayal at a time. For the first time in our marriage, I saw something new in her eyes. Respect. Not love, not affection, but a stunned recognition that I was no longer under her control. "You'll regret this," she whispered. "You'll never find anyone like me." I smiled genuinely. "That's exactly what I'm counting on." I walked out of our house that night with just a suitcase and my laptop. The cool evening air felt like freedom against my face. My friend was waiting in his car at the end of the block. I'd arranged everything down to the minute. She followed me to the porch, her voice shifting between rage and desperation. "You think this is some kind of movie moment?" she shouted. "You think you're teaching me a lesson? Get back inside." I kept walking, not looking back. Her voice changed again. "Please," she called, softer now. "I'm sorry, we can fix this. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever you want." For a second, my steps faltered, 8 years of habit nearly pulling me back into her orbit. But then my phone buzzed with a text from her lover, sent to both of us. "Is everything okay? You're not answering my calls." She must have realized I had his number. Her scream of frustration echoed down the street as I reached my friend's car. "She doesn't look happy," my friend observed as we drove away. "She's not used to losing control," I replied. The next 3 days were a blur of practical matters. My lawyer expedited the divorce papers. I opened new accounts. I arranged for a moving company to collect my remaining possessions while she was at work. I found a small apartment and signed a 6-month lease. Throughout it all, my phone never stopped. Her messages came in waves, angry, then pleading, then threatening, then bargaining. She showed up at my office, creating a scene that only reinforced my decision. She sent her sister to talk sense into me, which backfired when her sister, after hearing the full story, quietly told me she understood my decision. On the fourth day, I returned to the house with a police escort to collect some personal items I didn't trust the movers with. Family photos, heirlooms from my parents, important documents. She was waiting, eyes red and puffy. "You called the police on me?" she hissed as I entered. "I'm just here for my things," I said, moving past her to her bedroom. She followed, watching silently as I collected what remained of my life before her. "What about all the good times?" she finally asked. "You're just throwing everything away?" I paused, considering my answer carefully. "No, you did that when you decided I wasn't enough. I never said. You didn't have to say it. You showed it every day in 1,000 tiny ways." For the first time, she seemed to have no response. She stood in the doorway, diminished somehow, as I carried my box toward the front door. As I reached the threshold, she made one last attempt. "Your name is still on the mortgage," she said. "You're still responsible for half." I nodded. "The lawyer will sort that out. Sell the house if you need to. I can't afford it alone," she admitted, vulnerability breaking through her armor. "That's not my problem anymore." Her face contorted with a flash of the old contempt. "This is exactly why I needed someone else. You're too weak to even fight for our marriage." I looked at her, really looked at her. One last time in that moment I saw her clearly. Not the goddess I'd placed on a pedestal, not the cruel manipulator of recent days, but just a flawed, insecure person who had built herself up by tearing others down. "I'm not fighting for something that hurts me," I said simply. "That's not weakness, that's self-respect." I closed the door behind me, her first genuine sob breaking through as it clicked shut. The sound followed me down the walkway, raw, uncontrolled, and strangely satisfying. In the police officer's car, I exhaled fully for what felt like the first time in years. "All good?" the officer asked. Getting there, I replied, watching our house shrink in the side mirror as we drove away. 6 months can change everything. The divorce was finalized faster than expected. She didn't contest it once she realized I wouldn't return. The house sold quickly, and after splitting the proceeds, I had enough to place a down payment on a small but modern condo downtown, closer to my office. The first month alone was the hardest. I'd wake up reaching for someone who wasn't there, momentarily forgetting everything that had happened. But gradually, those moments became less frequent. I joined a gym, not to bulk up or prove anything, but simply because I wanted to feel stronger. I started therapy, unpacking years of subtle manipulation I'd normalized. At work, I threw myself into a major project that had intimidated me before. Without her voice in my head telling me I wasn't capable enough, I excelled. 3 months after moving out, I received the promotion I'd been hesitant to pursue when we were together. I reconnected with friends she had subtly pushed away over the years. I restarted guitar lessons. I cooked meals I enjoyed without worrying about her critiques. Small freedoms accumulated into a new life, one built around my own wants and needs rather than someone else's approval. Dating wasn't initially on my agenda, but 4 months after the separation, I met someone at a client's corporate event. She was the project manager for their company, intelligent, direct, and genuinely kind. Our conversation flowed easily, and when she suggested coffee the following week, I surprised myself by saying yes. That coffee date turned into dinner, then weekend hikes, then more. She never made me feel judged or inadequate. The first time we were intimate, I braced myself for disappointment or comparison. Instead, she was present, communicative, and afterward she held me close and whispered, "That was perfect." 3 simple words that healed wounds I hadn't realized were still open. Then came the day I'd privately dreaded. My friend was getting married, and the reception was at an upscale restaurant where local professionals frequently gathered. I knew there was a high probability of seeing my ex-wife there. I arrived with my new partner, feeling confident in my tailored suit, in the life I'd rebuilt. An hour into the reception, as we were laughing with friends, I felt a familiar presence. My ex-wife stood across the room, staring at us. She looked thinner, more sharply dressed than usual, as if trying to project a perfect image. Our eyes met briefly. I nodded politely and returned to my conversation without missing a beat. Later, as my partner and I danced, my ex approached. "You look well," she said, her voice tight. "Thank you." "So do you," I replied simply. An awkward silence stretched between us, filled with all the things neither of us would say in public. "I heard about your promotion," she finally offered. "Congratulations, thank you." She glanced at my partner, who had stepped away to get drinks. "She seems nice." "She is," I confirmed. "Very." Another pause. She seemed to be waiting for something. Questions about her life, perhaps, or some indication that I missed her. I offered neither. Well, she said finally, I should get back to my table. I nodded, noticing she was alone at a table of couples. As she turned to leave, she added, for what it's worth, I'm sorry for everything. 6 months ago, those words would have meant the world to me. Now they were just words. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said sincerely. My partner returned, handing me a drink. Was that? Yes, I confirmed. That chapter's closed now. She squeezed my hand knowingly, and we rejoined our friends. Later that night, as we left the reception, I caught one last glimpse of my ex-wife. She was watching us from across the room, a complex expression on her face as she saw me laugh at something my partner said. In that moment, I realized my greatest revenge wasn't planned or executed. It was simply living well without her shadow over me. I walked out with my head high, my hand intertwined with someone who valued me completely. No dramatic confrontation, no harsh words, just the quiet triumph of rebuilding a life that was finally, authentically mine. As I sit in my new condo, the city lights flickering through the window, I feel a quiet peace I haven't known in years. The silence here isn't heavy, it's liberating. For so long, I lived under the weight of her words, each one a tiny cut that eroded my confidence until I barely recognized myself. That dinner party, with her cruel jokes slicing through me in front of her colleagues, was the final blow, but it also woke me up. I see now that I was never the problem. She was. Her need to diminish me to feel bigger wasn't love, it was control, and I let it happen for too long. I'm not angry anymore. The rage that burned those first few nights, replaying her mocking laughter and those damning text messages, has faded into something calmer. Resolve maybe, or self-respect. I'm proud of the man I'm becoming. Moving out, setting up my own accounts, signing that lease. It felt like reclaiming pieces of myself I'd forgotten existed. Therapy has helped me unpack the years of subtle abuse I normalized, the way I'd shrink to fit her expectations. Now, every choice I make, from cooking a simple pasta dish to strumming my guitar again, feels like an act of defiance against the version of me she tried to define. There are moments when doubt creeps in. 8 years is a long time to share a life, and sometimes I catch myself wondering if I could have tried harder, if I could have been enough. But then I remember her words, those venomous, careless jabs, and the truth hits me. No amount of effort would have changed someone who thrived on my insecurities. Finding those messages with her lover was devastating, but it was also freeing. It confirmed what I'd long suspected. Her love was a performance, and I was just a prop. I'm rebuilding now, and it's messy but beautiful. My condo is small, but it's mine, filled with books I actually want to read, a gym bag for workouts that make me feel strong, not judged. My new promotion at work, the one she would have dismissed, has given me purpose. My friends, the ones she pushed away, have welcomed me back with open arms. And then there's Sarah, my new partner. She doesn't fix me. She doesn't need to. Her kindness, her laughter, the way she looks at me like I'm enough. It's healing wounds I didn't know were still raw. Seeing my ex at that wedding reception, her apology hanging in the air, I felt nothing but closure. I don't need her regret. I need my own peace. I'm not the man who served dessert with a smile while she mocked me. I'm someone new, someone who chooses himself. And that, more than anything, is my triumph. A life rebuilt, not in spite of her, but for me.